Hello, everybody. It's Friday. It's Drama Free Friday. Hello, hello. Hi, Rhonda. You changed your name. Good to see you. I'm used to you being Jinx. And every time I say that, I think, Jinx, Jinx, you owe me a Coke. It is nice to see you pop into the chat. I hope you're doing okay. Hello, Connie. Hi, Kathy. Haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Hi, Peggy. No clue what's happening. Well, that's okay. It's okay. None of us need to know. Or do any of us really know what's going on anywhere? Not really. Not really. We just all kind of float along, don't we? Hi, Terry. Everybody's got numbers by their names at the moment. Except Peggy. She doesn't. Is that normal? Okay, all right. I'm glad you guys are all here. Nothing is... Hello, my brainy mess. I can't remember your name. I think I've seen you here before, but I don't remember your name, but welcome. Is anything... Nothing is normal these days. That's kind of true. That's kind of true. Feels that way, doesn't it? Okay, so yeah, it's Friday, and we're going to, by hook or by crook, we're going to finish up this little gnome project, and then I have something else because I don't think this will take the whole time. I have a few things done on the cottage, but we need to finish a little bit more, and then I have another little thing that we can do. Ava. Okay. Thank you, my brainy mess, Ava. Thank you for telling me. I wanted to say that, but I didn't think. I thought, nah, I don't think that's right. Anyway, it's Friday, and I'm here. I am here with you guys, and I appreciate being here. And I have managed to get through the last room of my house. So all we have left to deal with is furniture and selling it. So there's some stuff that we have to do to throw away and things like that still. Oops, I need to get rid of something on my computer. There we go. So anyway, it's pretty good. It's pretty good progress. Yeah, keep making stuff and growing stuff to keep us sane. And I'm here, Kathy. I'm here. Exactly. It's things are kind of wacky right now, and you know what? We're just gonna have to roll with it. That's all. Because otherwise, you just get yourself all in a lather and upset. And if there's things you can do something about, and I've said this for a long time. Any of you who've been watching me for a while know that I've said this before. If there's something you can do about it, then go do it. And if there isn't anything you can do about it, whatever it is, whether it's something in the world or something in a family situation or, whatever, if there's something you can do about it, then go do it. And if you can't, then you got to just keep living your life, right? You got to keep living your life. You do have to look for the good. I did, Peggy. I did. I got through the whole house, and I had a big plastic bag. I mean, big plastic bag full of mostly old towels. Some of them weren't that old, but towels and wash rags and kitchen towels and, just stuff like that. I had all that stuff. Big bag of it. And some like old baby blankets from hospitals and stuff like that. One time Clausman brought home this giant box of blankets from the hospital, like the ones they wrap newborns in, so they all look the same. They all look like, minus the paint, they look like this. Okay, they look like that, except they're a lot bigger. And he brought home this whole thing of them because somebody had, one of our clients had given them to him. And they only use them one time at the hospital. And then there's nothing they can do with it. So they have all these blankets. Anyway, so we ended up with a truckload of them. So I personally ended up with a truckload. He'd already used up a whole bunch of them as rags. So then I took those and put those in this bag and all that. And Miss Muppet, the dog, was at the vet's this week overnight because we were gone overnight out of town. Came back the next day. And I'm seeing this giant bag of all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm so tired of hauling stuff around to other places and getting rid of it. And so I was going to take her to the vet that day. And so I called them and I said, do you guys ever need things like bath towels and, old towels and stuff like that? Do you ever need that for the dog kennels and things? And they go, oh, yes. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to hook you up. And so I took this great big bag of towels and rags and all that kind of stuff over to the vet clinic where Muppet stays and Chance used to stay, and they were thrilled. Ta-da! So it was great. Hi, Joan. Hey, Dorothy. So, yeah. Yeah, it is still showing your name. Yep, sure is. Anyway, welcome everybody. I'm glad you are here. So, yeah. So that's the latest. I got, the house is almost, as of this afternoon, later this afternoon, it will be totally empty of all remaining personal possessions. And all we have left is furniture. And I've given away a ton of stuff, and I talked to an auctioneer yesterday. And so they're going to let me know if there's enough that they can do an online auction. And you certainly did, Rhonda. So, yeah, I'm almost out of there. I'm almost completely done, and I am so grateful. Because I'm going to actually be in one place and maybe actually be able to do a little bit better with the streams and prep for streams and stuff. Because honestly, I've been limping. I've been limping my way through this. And I appreciate each and every one of you being patient with me as we've been doing exactly that for the last, I don't know how long. I have been at this for almost a year. Not quite, but getting close. It's a lot. It is a lot of work. Man, it's a lot of work. And then I have to get my stuff settled here finally. But anyway, we're making progress. Enough about me. I hope you all are doing well. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I'm Barb, in case you're new. And tomorrow's a VIP class. So those emails have gone out. check your email. It'll have information, those of you that are members there. And so as far as my streaming schedule, because, you know, it's crazy sometimes, and it will be crazy again. I'm streaming on Monday, this coming Monday. So I will be here at 7 Eastern on Monday evening, my time, 7 Eastern. Then I will not be streaming the 4th, the 7th, or the 11th. Okay, so there are 3 times in a row that I won't be here. I hopefully will be back on the 14th. But we are going out of town, and so I will fill you in on all of that. Hey, Judy. I will be back with you guys and get everybody going. We'll get back on schedule when I get back. There's my husband, Elton Fay, who now has a number beside his name. I wonder why everybody's got numbers by their names this time. Not everybody, but almost everybody. Isn't that crazy? He is a good man. I think I might keep him around. You think I should keep him? I think I might. I hope you're having a good day, Mr. Elton Fay 4055, whatever that means. I think YouTube must be having some fun today. Anyway, okay. You think he's a keeper? I think he's a keeper. Yeah, I've kept him for almost 9 months, getting close to 9 months. So I think I might keep him a while longer. Okay, let us move forward. Like I said, I have a couple things to do today because I don't think this Gnome project that we have stretched out, I don't think it's going to need to go much longer. I don't think it'll take all day today. Okay, so by way of review, we've been taking these little gnomes that I happened to see at Hobby Lobby. They were in a little package. They're a Hobby Lobby brand called Wood Pile, and there's 3 little gnomes in a package, plus a mushroom. And so this is the mushroom. They're raw wood, which means there's no finish on them whatsoever. They suck up paint like, you know, they're like a straw. And so I had to get 2 packages of these little gnomes because I wanted 2 mushrooms. And then I also saw this little cottage. And so they weren't packaged together. I just thought, oh, those would be so cute, you know. And this is a good project. And so that's what I did. Okay, so from the raw wood gnomes, and all of these are streamed so you can see them. From the raw wood gnomes we created here on the air, painted these little guys and turned them into little silly little characters, kind of cartoon-esque characters. I showed you a lot about shading, you know, base coating and shading and so forth. And so there is, and I added some little gold buttons on his boots. So he went from this one, he went from looking like this in my left hand to looking like this in my right hand. Okay? And I made up the colors. Didn't make any difference. I just made it up. Okay. So there's that one. This one went from this. He had gold buckles already on his little boots. And then he ended up, I finished him up looking like this. I think they really are awfully cute. And you could easily, if you have just a little, even a little hand drill, you could hand drill a little hole, or you could glue a ribbon on the back or something. You could turn them into Christmas ornaments pretty easily. And this one went from this to this, and I put little gold and black. I did them in gold first, and then they didn't show up, so then I put black. Let's see if I can show them to you. Camera's not going to work real well. Let's do this one. There we go. Okay, so I did it in gold first for the little bows on his pretend shoes or boots or whatever, and then I just went over it with black. So that way they showed up a little bit. Okay. I'll tell you what, that Dorothy and that Judy, they can go after each other. They're pretty funny. Okay, the gnome house. This is the gnome house, which was raw wood as well. And so it's in sort of a state of completion. And so we did some of this on Monday evening. And so we're going to go after finishing it now. And so what we have in here that I finished when you weren't looking, I put curtains in the windows. I think it's a little easier for you to see on this other camera, so give me just a second. Okay. So what I did on this one is I finished the curtains in the window. I'll show you a little closer. So I put curtains in the window, and then I shaded around the edge of the window to make the curtains look like they're inside the house instead of outside. And then I just put a cross piece, and I did it wonky on purpose because the gnomes are not known for perfection. We know this about them. The little window, the attic window, I put just some light in the window, shaded around the window just like I shaded around to create the beard and the parts of the gnome. Same exact process. So if you want to see how I did that, you can look back at some of the other streams. Added the shading around the little window and the door. Everything's a little wonky, a little skewed on purpose. Put the cross pieces in. And I decided to leave the wood looking just like this because most of this is going to get covered up anyway. So I just left that semi wood grain look. I finished up the rest of the stones around the cottage. That's what we did Monday night, is we were making stones based on inspiration from, I can get a hold of it, this magazine article that I had found when I was cleaning out magazines. And so these were stones that I think those were done in fabric, and so I used that as inspiration for painting my little stones on the cottage. Well, Snow White does. No, I know who does. Who looks after them is this one, Mama Gnome. Yeah, Mama Gnome looks after them. She's the one that does all that. It says so in the book. Yeah, I think she's cute. Anyway, okay, so I am now ready. Oh, and then I just put some little white lines on there just to suggest a reflection in the window. Okay. Hey, Amber, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. That's great. So that just indicates some little that the reflection is on the glass. Okay, so the stones have all been painted on the front of the cottage. I have just base coated in the stones on the side of the cottage. So we'll have to add a little more color to those, and then in order to make the stones really show up, because they just kind of blend into the background, I gave it a little bit more of the mortar look over here, so we'll do a little bit more of that. And these, I've just started the process of making, like, I don't know, some kind of blocks or bricks or some other kind of stone or some concrete block or something, I don't know, going around the door frame. Okay? So there's that. Mama Gnome, that's right. And then to suggest, and that's all it is a suggestion of a thatched roof. I've done this half of it. I have not done this half. Nothing's been done over here except slopping some paint on it. We may add a little bit more, and I actually may add a few dots to suggest flowers growing on the roof, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And then on the little chimney, I just put in some, it's easiest to see it here on this side. I just used a dark red, a super dark red that had, I think, a little bit of, what I did was I used these two. I used cranberry wine and burnt umber, so these two colors, and all this is done in craft acrylic paint, and thinned it way down, and then I just painted some wonky divisions to suggest bricks. Okay. Rhonda, I think it must have to do. Hi, is it Lindy? Tindy. I think it has to do with something YouTube has going on today. They're probably making changes again, because that's kind of what they do. They make changes. Okay, about the time you get used to things, then they change it, right? Okay, so let us see if we can get this completed, and I'm going to see if I can stay out of the way. First of all, let me go ahead and show you what this little composition is going to look like when it's finished. The plan is, oh, and I added some green grass around the mushrooms. Last Monday we put some black strokes to suggest the grass, and here I added some green just to do it. So we're going to put a couple of mushrooms, giant mushrooms, but we're going to put those behind the house. So it's going to be like a little three-dimensional scene here. Okay, so there's our little, what the mushrooms are going to be like. Everything has to be totally dry, sprayed with a finish, and then varnished before it can be put together. And then I thought we would take this little guy and put him about there, and this little guy, and let him stick off the edge just a little bit, so you can see him his hat's kind of hanging out there a little bit. But this way, by setting them off to the side, same with your name, has come up as Tindy here. Oh, it's Terry. Oh, hi, Terry. That's funny. Those are crazy. It is crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So everybody's names are a little wonky for whatever reason. And then we're going to put this little guy in here. So I'm going to have them offset to the right a little bit, so we can kind of see the door back there and see a little bit of the window. Might not have quite that much, but that's the plan, Stan. And so we might put a little, I don't know, maybe some grass down here or something. Put some grass on each side of the door, just so they have a place. It sort of suggests a place for them to stand. Okay? So that is the concept. And then we have a few other things to do up here, just to kind of finish it off. Is there any reason that a person should have to spend this amount of time painting something that all total has less than $10 invested in it? Nope. There's no reason to have to do that much work on something like this. You could easily paint it like a color book type, a very, it doesn't sound good because there are lots of color book artists that are doing beautiful work. But you know what I mean, like block color, just blocking it in, you certainly can do that. There's no reason not to. But it's fun to do. That's all. It's just fun to you know, especially when I don't have to make any decisions that mean anything. I can just paint and just go into a little pretend space in my head, right? Right. My husband Elton is so tired of me being emotional. I don't blame him. I don't blame him, but there's nothing I can do about it. You know, there are just times when this whole process of the whole thing has just gotten to me, you know, and I get real emotional. I'm like, oh, and he's been so patient. So I'm going to have to be really nice to him. I'm going to have to cook him a good dinner or something for the rest of my life to make up for this. Okay, so let's go to the table and let's see if we can just kind of finish this up. If you have any questions about anything, put it in. Decision fatigue is real. Man, you are correct. Oh, Terry, you are so correct about that. Oh my gosh, you are so correct. Yes, you are. Okay. Yes, I am so tired of that. I'm tired of lifting and pulling and tugging and throwing things in a dumpster and packing things to go to Goodwill, and yeah. Anyway, let's paint. So all I've used here is pewter gray and black. That's what's on my palette. And I'm using a script brush or liner brush, which if you look at it, looks very splayed out at the end. So it's very, very splayed. I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway, trust me, it's splayed out on the end. And so what I'm going to do is get some water. And I'm going to just put a brush mix of the pewter and the black together. I don't care that it is super even. I'm going to start with some fresh paint because that has been sitting just long enough that it's a little gummy. So we're going to start again. A little bit of black and a little bit of pewter gray. Exactly, Rhonda. Yes. If Linda Renz comes in, it is Tim's birthday, her son's birthday, Tim. And so I want to wish Tim a super duper, very, very, very happy birthday, Tim. And I hope you are having a wonderful day today on your birthday. So if you see Linda come in, make sure that you communicate happy birthday wishes to Tim, okay? All right. Let me zoom in here and I don't even know what a plinth is. I don't even know what that is. And so I'm just going to put them together just so that they're just, you know, because I'm tired of painting them is what the truth of it is. Okay, so I've just brush mixed together the gray and the black. I don't care if it's slightly different than what was there before. It doesn't make any difference to me. And then you take the brush and then you roll it in your fingers, and all of those splayed out bristles will come back together. Okay, this is a synthetic brush. It is it's so old that the lettering's worn off, so I have no idea what kind of brush it is. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to see if I can just kind of quickly put in the mortar between the stones. And this is a time when you can kind of reshape the stones if you want to. and add some variety to them. You know, if something's a little, it's not quite the way that you liked it. And then I'm going to have another brush ready that's just damp to just kind of blend things in a little bit. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. That's the process. So from there, I'm just going to work as quickly as I can. And I'm going to see if I can keep it on the table where you can see what I'm doing, because my tendency is to put it up under my nose. Take off my glasses and put it up under my nose where I can see the detail really well. But that doesn't make it easy for you guys to see at all if I have it up under my nose. Now the color will change as it dries. So it tends to get lighter as it dries. And I think at the moment everything I've done on here has fully dried. The great part about working with a brush like this, and I used to work with one of these all the time when I was painting in oil, is it carries a lot of paint, and it holds a lot of paint, in other words, and medium. In this case, the medium is water. Usually with, you know, like with oil paint, it's paint thinner or Gamsol or one of those other kinds of thinner products. And if you get the brush fully loaded with paint, you don't want it dripping off the brush, but you get the bristles. In this case, it's a synthetic bristle. Back in the day, we always painted with red sable, and then of course that people were not happy about painters doing that. And anyway, if you get the brush fully loaded with paint and the thinning medium, whatever it is that you're working with, and don't hold the brush too close to the metal part of the brush, then you can actually go quite a little bit of distance. Now on raw wood, not as much, because this is, even though this has got acrylic paint on it, where I've painted the stones and base coated everything in, it's still raw wood. I have not sealed it, and so it likes to suck that paint right on out of the brush very quickly. But you can go a lot further with a brush that has longer bristles or hairs in it. So if you are doing, let's say, outlining, like a folk art style painting, and you're outlining everything, you don't want to have to stop every ½ inch to reload your brush. And so having a brush like this that carries more paint and thinner or medium in it will let you go further. And when you're doing something like this where you're painting divisions in something, that is very helpful. Okay. So there is adding mortar to our stone. Nice and hot, huh? Ugh. Hello, Angela. Good to see you. Yeah, everybody check out Angela's link. That's great. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, let's keep going up here. But do try to keep your hand back a little further on the handle of your brush. You're more successful usually if you do that. And if you're actually trying to write with the brush like this, if the more perpendicular you hold the brush, the better and more consistent your lines will be. For what I'm doing here, I'm trying to keep the handle of the brush. If I do that, then my hand and the brush handle totally obscure your ability to see, and so I'm kind of purposely laying the brush down over to the side a little bit. And as the paint dries, if you look at it and go, oh, it needs a little bit more here, a little bit more there, you can go back and touch things up. It does not have to all be the same color because the gnomes are going to be in front of the house, so it does not matter, really. Okay? All right, let's go. So how are you all doing? I hope you're having a good day. We actually got a little bit of rain last night. It was getting super dry here. We actually got a little bit of rain. And went out this morning, and that was nice to see because we really, really needed it. We have some little garden area right in front of the house. It's partially vegetables and partially flowers. That's where those sunflowers are that I showed you pictures of. The birds planted those for us, which was very nice of them. But boy, that flower bed, it was getting dry. So the plants were very happy to have some moisture. I slept right through it. And as I said, I'm just brush mixing the gray and the black together. I'm trying to keep most of the sharp edges off of the stones because I think that they probably quarried these stones for this little cottage, and I think they probably concentrated on doing really good work and making their stones kind of more or less round-ish. I think that's what they did. And this is the kind of stuff, this fiddly stuff like this. This is when you put on a YouTube video or some kind of show on your computer or a podcast, and then just simply paint. Mindlessly paint, because that's kind of what this is kind of mindless, kind of a mindless activity. And yet you kind of have to concentrate a little bit, because if you don't, you'll be painting over something you didn't want to paint over. And the consistency of this paint to get it to work is ink. Okay, that's the consistency of it. You don't want it dripping off the brush, but you do have to have it thin enough that it will easily come off the brush. So we went to a Cardinals baseball game Wednesday night, and they were playing the Chicago Cubs, and they had beaten the Cubs. The Cardinals had beaten the Cubs the prior 2 nights. But the night we were there, we got skunked. I think it was 8-0. It was, yeah. It was a sad game, but the food was good. It was a long, late night. The game started at 6:45, and then we had to drive home after the game. It was a long night. When you're doing something like this, you want to have your hand moving, keeping the edges of the stones kind of uneven. I do want them to be a little bit smooth, but I don't want anything to be super even and straight. Every once in a while my hand has a mind of its own and goes the direction it wants to and not the direction I want it to. Okay, we're almost to get the front side of the cottage with all the masonry done. Whoop, got it too wet. And the acrylic paint, like watercolor, is if the surface beneath what you're painting is dry, if you come back immediately, you cannot wait, but immediately with a wet brush, damp brush, not wet, but a damp brush, you can pick up mistakes and you can soak up the excess paint, that might be a little too much. Like a little more than you wanted, you can soak it up. But if you get the consistency right on the brush to begin with, then you don't have to worry about that too much. I will check the chat here in just a moment. That is something that's very challenging to keep up with while I'm using a liner brush. Okay. So you can see it really didn't take all that long to put the mortar in between the stones. And if there are places where it dries down and it's too thin, like this right up here, it was pretty thin, and I was seeing more of the background than I wanted to, I just come back in and touch it up and put in a little bit more. Put in a little bit more of the color. A second coat is fine. You could even do a third coat. Okay, and so there is the mortar in our rocks in our little stone cottage. All right, let me look at the, trying to get all the paint out of my brush, because this, if that paint gets up inside the metal, inside here on a brush like this, it is not going to work for you. So you could really have to keep that brush cleaned out. Okay, let me look at the chat here for a second. Da-dum. Hi Dana, good to see you. Dana, did you get your emails today, I hope? I sent emails to you about the class information. Just checking chat. Yes, all is well. 109 heat index. Yuck. That's hot. Amber says, I wish there was a damp brush to pick up mistakes in life. Yes, amen to that. Hi, Peg Robinson. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, things are... Oh, Sarah. 3 dogs and 2 kids. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you. Sarah's in Scotland. I'm glad you're here. I'm very glad to see you in the chat. Hope you're doing okay today. I think you're still in Scotland, aren't you? Sarah and I go back a long way. Okay, let's stick in the rest of the thatched roof while this dries. I'm gonna let the stones on the side of the building, I'm just gonna let them do their own thing here. I don't want to torture you into having to watch more stone painting unless you beg me. Unless you beg me to paint stones. I don't think you want me to do that. In Scotland, yeah. It's good to see you. Okay, so to do stones. Yes. Try that again. To do the suggestion of the thatched roof. That's what we're going to do. Suggestion of a thatched roof, which is what you see right here. And this is just my suggestion of, it's not real. I don't want anybody giving me garbage about how, well, that's not how they really look. Yeah, understood. Understood. You need to have, or at least I find what works best to get this sort of scruffy looking technique is to use a stencil brush. These are two different kinds of stencil brushes. One is flat across the end, and the other one has a dome across the end. The dome one is the one that I was using on this. And you don't have, and they're bristle brushes, and so you don't have to be particularly nice to these. So what I'm going to do is I put out two colors of green. This one is light avocado and this one is green tea, I believe. Yep, light avocado and green tea. And I'm going to get the brush really splayed open, but it still has that rounded top on it. I'm going to get a hold of some of the dark green and pounce it on the palette so it makes those bristles really open up. And if it doesn't show up, I'm going to get a hold of some of the green tea and pounce into it, but not so much that I can't see the difference. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to have to reload this pretty much after every little section. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to put some more. Stomp in some more. And it's ideal if you do something like this, if it has two sides to the roof like this does, it's ideal if you do the two sides at once, because it will often look like it was done at two different times. If you don't. Okay, I'm leaving a little bit of space between the areas that I'm stomping in here. All right, I'm gonna have to turn this kind of upside down because I'm gonna try not to stomp it on the chimney. It's good enough. Okay. And then I'm going to come down and do the part down below the chimney. Again, trying not to paint the chimney and trying to leave a little bit of space between my rows of quasi thatching, and then I put a little bit underneath the eave. Now once that dries, the color may all kind of disappear or, you know, not be distinct enough. Like over here, you can see that there's more color, more variation in color. So once this is dry, which it's probably pretty dry by now, I'm going to do just the light green. And I'm going to see if I can get a little more color. But it's tricky because you don't want to cover up all the green that you put below, and also you want things to have kind of an uneven appearance because this is plant material, so you don't want it to be stripy. Essence of stripe. How about that? Essence of stripe. Okay, so there's the two sides of our roof. And this one, I'm going to come back to a brush that is pretty splayed out. This one is pretty splayed out. It's pretty well used up brush. And I'm going to get a hold of some of that light color. And because the shape of the brush is different, I might be able to get down toward that chimney a little bit more. Okay, I like that better. Okay, so there's the two parts of the roof. This needs a little more right there. Oh, and then I forgot this part. So we want to come back. I need a little bit more green tea. And I forgot the front part of the roof, so let's see if we can kind of make it. I'm not going to worry too much about whether it matches the top of the roof. Okay, good enough. And then I'm going to come back and pick up some of the green tea. And if you use a brush that's like this, it helps. It's already giving you some of the texture, which is great. So the brush does some of the work for you. Okay, so there's our roof. There's our roof line. We're going to call it good. Okay. And when you're done, then be sure and clean out your brush, because if you let any of your brushes dry too long with acrylic paint in them, then you're going to have to work really hard to bring them back to some sort of usable condition. And I would encourage you to use either pink soap, which I find to be really good if you can't fully clean out your brushes right then. Put the pink soap in, that will condition them and keep the paint from becoming rock hard in the brush. And if they do get rock hard, then your next best solution is to soak them in Murphy oil soap. Okay, pretty clean. And this one, script brush, looks like it's pretty clean. You need to, with a script brush like this, one of these liner brushes, you need to put soap in it, whether it's pink soap or regular soap, doesn't really matter a whole lot. But put the soap in there and then work it into the bristles and then bring those bristles back to a point. And that will help keep the shape of your brush. Okay? Alrighty, so let's put a shadow under the eave of our little roof, because I have some black paint here, and I'm going to put some brown, some burnt umber. It does. Murphy oil soap is a blessed product. Is a blessed product. That is for sure. Okay, so I'm going to dampen my brush. I need a fresh paper towel here. So I'm going to get a fresh, dry paper towel so I have something to work with. And let me just stick it under the edge of the palette, because then maybe you can see it. All right. And I'm going to have to turn my house so that I can work toward myself. If I don't work toward myself, this isn't going to work at all, because I need to pull the brush toward me. So water on the brush, then dampen, tamp it on the paper towel so you get rid of most of it. Pick up a corner of burnt umber and a corner of black. I got rid of too much of the water. I'm going to brush mix these together so I have almost like a raw umber look, but the majority of the paint is over there on the long pointy end of the brush. And then I'm going to come right under the eave of the house. I'm going to touch the eave of the house with the pointy part of my brush, and if I have any of the stripy look forming, like I didn't blend on the palette long enough. If I end up with any stripiness, then I use the other brush, which is in my hand, which is damp, to come right in there and immediately chase that stripy look away. I want it to be dark, but I don't want to have a hard edge, a hard inner edge to my shadow. Okay? All right. So hopefully you can see that that does make a big difference. I hope. If it dries out to where it's not enough, then I'll come back and I will do it again. But you can do it maybe twice, and then you got to let it dry. Because if you keep going on it, you're just going to take all the paint off that you put on there. Okay, we need to do some work on the stones here, which we'll do in a minute. But since I have these colors out, the shading color, I'm going to just take advantage of that. So I'm going to blend that again on my palette. And I'm going to start right beside the gray stones. That are part of the door frame. And as I said, if it gets too stripy looking, then I come right back with a damp brush and just kind of soften that out a little bit. Pick up some more paint. And then just keep going and shade. A little more shading around the door frame, which should help to set those stones up a little bit away from the gray stones. Set those up away from the background stones of the cottage a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So that is the shading on that. I think I'm going to do the same or something similar around the windows. Just I like the dimension that I get from doing this, you know, because the wood trim on the windows would be on the outside of the house. And so that means that the stones need to recess away from the wood trim a little bit. And be sure that you don't leave shadows or shading areas with hard lines, because that's not how shading usually looks. It usually does not look natural with a hard edge to it. And if your paint starts pulling and not blending easily, then that means that you don't have enough water on your brush. So you got to stop and reload. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. This is living dangerously using a brush that this is this big up here, but you know, we're gonna go for it. and shade around the little attic window. Always watching that you're not getting a hard edge drying, and no sharp corners. To the shading. Okay, I think it's shaping up pretty well. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is very similar. I'm going to try the same color, the brown and the black blended together, and I'm going to shade up here on my chimney next to the house. Don't really need to do it on the back side of the house because nobody's ever going to see that. And then I'm going to poke a little bit down here, down next to the roof where you can hardly see it. And then just making sure that I haven't let it like drip down on the roof, because I really don't want it to do that necessarily. Maybe just a little bit. The raw wood really sucks the moisture out of your brush, so you gotta move quickly. You can't dilly-dally around. You gotta just keep going. Okay, so I think that gives our chimney a little shading, and it gives our roof a little bit of shading. And then while I'm here, I'm going to put some under the overhang of my little roof, and I'll do some on the other side. You know, how much time here's the question: how much time can you spend on a $5 piece of wood from the craft store? The answer to that question is a lot. So these stones will have to be finished painting those in. You can see the difference between what this is before. This is where they're just base coated, and this is after. So they have quite a bit of work that needs to be done. Okay, and then one more thing I want to do before I do the stones. I'm going to work on these gray stones here. I'm going to use a smaller brush. Let's use this one, maybe. And I'm going to pick up the same colors, the dark brown and a little touch of black, so it turns it into more of a raw umber color instead of burnt umber. And I want to come around the inside edge of my door frame, of my door itself, next to those gray stones. To set the door back into the house, away from the stones. Okay, All right, that's gonna be fine. Bye, Amber. Thanks for being here. Barbara Clark, hello. Good to see you. Okay, so let's work on these stones a little bit. These gray stones, because they're just flat. They're just blah, right? They're just blah. So let's use, I'm going to see if I can eke out enough of this fawn color to see if we can get enough paint out that we can, oh, we can. Good, good, good. And then I have some of the darker brown, and then if we need another color, I'll get another color. We're going to have to drop down to a small brush because these are small stones. And so I'm going to pick up some of the fawn color and a little bit of burnt umber, kind of brush mixed together. And let's kind of go the process that we used on the big stones. That's kind of my thought. We'll see how this goes. So I'm going to kind of just dab color in. But because I'm starting with gray, with the gray undercoat, they should look different than the other stones out here. And I may need a little bit of antique white. Put a little bit of antique white out here just so we have something that has a little bit different color to work with. And just kind of blending. It takes a minute when you do this kind of stuff. It takes a minute to get the look that you're going for. And sometimes I don't know what look it is I'm going for until I get it, and then I go, okay, that's it, you know. So we're gonna try not to destroy. I'm gonna put a little gray out here too. Yeah, everybody's name kind of got changed around today. I don't know what the deal is. Does anybody have any idea what's going on? So a little bit of gray put back. And then we'll do the next one, and hopefully it does not look like the one I just did below it, because I want them to be unique. Like they came from the same quarry, but they're not the exact same stone. Okay, and we're going to keep going. So I'm working with burnt umber and a little bit of fawn and a little bit of gray. But trying not to blend all the colors together necessarily, because I want them to be irregular, kind of doing their own thing a little bit. And if I have to come back and clean up the outside, you know, if I get too sloppy out around the outside edge, I can always clean that up. Okay. If you dig around in there too long with the brush, you just turn everything one color, and that's not what we're after. We're after a mottled look. So if you have any questions, put them in all caps. I'll look up here in just a minute. When I take a break from painting in stones, these are a different kind of stone. I don't know what kind they are, but they're different from the ones on the house, and we want them to look a little different. Therefore, you kind of have to be conscious of that. Okay. It is YouTube's new handle system. What does that mean? Hello, Make and Craft Studio. Trying to see how we can manage our handle. You know, is somebody trying to think for us again? Is somebody trying to take care of us when we don't need to be taken care of? Hard to say. Okay, let's keep going. So I got to get the water out of my brush, because if you have water in your brush when you're doing this kind of thing, you're just going to make a mess. So I'm just using a loose, light dabbing motion. Let's come in closer so maybe you can see more of it. Okay, so and I just kind of work back and forth in the colors until I get something that I like, and then I'm like, okay, move on. It's like, that's okay, moving on. Good enough. And they will change, the stones, as they dry, just like these stones out here changed when they were drying. You could see it right before your very eyes. They were changing. And that will happen on these as well, of course. Interesting. Hi, Joyce. That is curious. Wonder why they're doing that. Wonder what that's all about. We just must not be smart enough to be able to manage ourselves. We must need help managing ourselves. You think? It's just always nice when somebody has to step in and think for you and just take care of you, because after all, you're not really smart enough. Oh, don't get me started. You didn't get me started. I got myself started. Okay, let's keep going. And I'm going to stop here in about 10 minutes, regardless of where I am in this process. And we're going to look at something else, just because I got something in the mail a couple of weeks ago that I didn't get to play with until today. I just so briefly played with it. And I thought, yeah, we'll show you. We'll just take a look at it and kind of experiment with it a little bit. Yep, that was ugly. I wonder what the deal is with that. Bye, Macon. Bye, Joan. Something to do with random commenters. Huh. Bizarre. Bizarre. As I'm doing this, you can probably, maybe, tell that I am also making the mortar between the stones around the doorway. I'm making that a little bit smaller. Sometimes I like to try different things and see, do I like putting the mortar in first or second? So in this case, I put the mortar in first around this, and then I came back and I'm putting the stones in and making the mortar a little bit different. I'm sizing it the way I want this time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but well, you guys get it all figured out. You guys figure it out, and then you can share it with the rest of us. How about that? I always love it when somebody else has to figure it all out. Or will figure it out. How about that? So I am just literally dabbing color into these stones. I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy watching people paint stuff. So I thought maybe you wouldn't mind if I just painted this a little bit longer. And I'm going to stop here in about 2 minutes and we'll go to the other thing. And then I will finish this up later. I promise I won't make you watch gnome houses and gnome paintings beyond today. Promise. I'm just about out of brown paint, so maybe we'll stop rather than get out more paint. Yeah, I think we'll stop. Okay, so there you can see the difference of the stones being put in on this side but not here, so they're just flat gray over here, but yet they're a little different than the ones that are in the whole cottage. So there is our little gnome cottage that's about done. Let's put in, just because we can, because I think that this little thatched roof, and I don't know if they actually do this or not, because I don't know anything about thatched roofs. I have to tell you, nothing. I don't know if they plant stuff on the roofs like flowers and stuff, but we're going to pretend that they do. And so we're going to just put in some little dip dot flowers. And what's easy to do, and we worked on this the other day, is, I was just trying to debate which size stylus I wanted to use. Oh, thank you guys. I'm just going to use the stylus. This is one of those Martha Stewart stylus. Came from her set of styluses. I don't know what the plural of stylus is. So I put out some tomato spice red. It's a red-orange, kind of a red-orange color. And the other one was cadmium yellow. So let's see how big these dots are. They'll be okay. So I'm just going to pick this up. And let's just put some little 3 or 4 petal dip dot flowers. I'm not going to put too many. Could be 5. Okay. Coming down through the thatch of the roof. Well, that's a strange looking flower, so we'll make that petal a little bigger. Every once in a while I do surprise myself at how bad I can make something look sometimes. And then maybe one down here at the edge of the roof. Okay, and then I'm going to come back with another stylus, maybe a smaller one. Oh, this is already skinned over. It's okay. We're going to make it work. This paint is already skimmed over a little bit. I just want some centers for my flowers. Let's see if we can encourage it with a little water. You probably can't see that because I didn't have it on the in the shot, Barb. So I'm going to just put a little bit of water, stir it in with the stylus. And then clean off the stylus. Pick up the paint. Try it. That's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so we have some little flowers growing in our thatched roof, and then probably we should put a couple on the front. I don't know if they do this, but it's our house. It's our house that we are making up as we go along. We can do it any way we want. Okay, wipe off the stylus, and I used the smaller one for the whole thing this time. Keep your finger out of the dots, even though they're gonna dry fast. They're gonna be wet for a little bit. Okay, so we have a few little flowers in our thatched roof on that side, so we'll do the same thing over here, and hopefully I can keep my hand out of it. I'm going to go back to the bigger stylus, and let's see if we can do something similar, plant some flowers in our roof. It seems like that would be a good thing to do. The wood on this side is a different, the grain is different. It's definitely cross grain over here. I mean, it is just like a sponge. When the paint hits it, it just soaks it right into the wood. Okay, keeping my fingers, always being conscious to the best of my ability. To figure out where I'm going to hold the thing. Trying not to smear the dots. Also known as flowers. Okay, and then let's put some little, well, since we did smaller flowers over here, we'll do smaller flowers on this side as well. You can use the back end of a paintbrush, a tiny paintbrush, to do this also. Don't need to have a stylus. But if you have one, why not use it? Okay. So let's put in some centers in our flowers before I lose all my yellow paint. When you add water to paint, and it's the same thing with oil paint if you are thinning it with acrylic, with paint thinner, oil paint. If you do that, you got to be careful that you don't get it so thin that it wants to run on you if you're painting it in a position like this. If you get it too thin, it's going to want to drip. So you kind of got to be aware of that. This one's going to need a larger dot. Because it's a bigger flower. Okay. And then we have a few little flower centers over here. And then I think our little gnomes are going to be looking pretty much at home. I said I was going to put some grass coming up from the bottom, and I think we'll do that. I'm going to do some in black, and then I will come back later and add the green to it, okay? So let's see if, okay. And maybe these will be some have some little flowers dipped onto the little dip dot flowers on there after. I do grasses. Okay. All right, good enough. So we have our little cottage that's not quite done, but almost. It's almost finished. And then our little guys will be on there, but that will carry the red around, and the browns are all carried around, the gold's carried around. That's what you want when you're doing this stuff, is you want your eye to move around on the whatever it is, whether it's a painting or it's a piece of wood or it's a mandala or whatever it is. You want your eye to continue moving around and not just going, you know. The only thing on here that I'm not super duper happy with is the white curtains, because they are so white. But if I have this little guy who is in front of most of that, and their beards are pretty white. So I think that it's all going to work when it's done. That's why you can't judge the whole piece until it's all done, right? Okay, so there is our cottage. We need to finish. I need to finish the stones on the side. Other than that, we're going to call it done. And so I'm going to set it off. And then we're going to look at this other stuff that I got. Okay? So I'm just going to set it out of the way. So the other day I was watching Mary Beth Shaw, and it's been several weeks ago. Wasn't just like the other day, it was several weeks ago. And she was using bleeding tissue, and she was using it with stencils because of course she owns Stencil Girl products. And so I ordered some of the bleeding tissue because I'd never ordered any of it, and I just wanted to see what it would do. So I got it in several forms, and so I thought I would show you the forms that I got it in, because I think a lot of you are like I am. You like circles, and you can get it in pre-cut circular shapes. And so this is all of the circles that are in here, of which there are several different sizes. Those all came in one pack. It was 2,250 pieces, and it's 25 assorted colors in 3 assorted sizes. And they are an inch and a half, 2.5, and 4-inch circles. So it's Spectra art tissue. It's bleeding tissue paper. I also got it in squares, and this one says bleeding art tissue on it. 25 assorted colors, 2,500 pieces, and this is the size. They're 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So that's the size of the pieces that are cut. I didn't dump them all in here yet. I did the circles and I did a few of the squares. I also bought it in bigger sheets, so I have bigger sheets of the bleeding tissue to do some stuff with. Anyway, so I thought, I'll see what it does. And so this is just a test journal, and so this was something I was trying to remember how to do years and years and years ago. And so I wet the paper just with water, and then I took the circles and laid them down. And so I'm going to pull them off so you can see what we got. So the light pink one didn't do much. I must not have had enough water or good adhesion. And you can't control exactly what the result is you're going to get. It's kind of like watercolor, and they will blend like this. These have been on here for a while. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to use these. I'm going to stick them on a journal page. I probably won't save them every time, but I'm going to save them for this one. And I'm going to be right back because I need some clean water, because I want to see if this continues to run. So let me get some clean water. Because I don't know if it's if it dries and it's permanent or not. So I got just some clean water, and so that's what we have, and the brush is clean. So let's see what this does. So have any of you played with bleeding tissue? Looks like it's moving a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, I think it's pretty waterproof after it dried. You've heard of it? Okay, so there's that one. So those were just some circles that I stuck on there, and I'll show you exactly what I did, how I did it here in a second. And this is in a different journal. I gotta make myself a little bit more room here. So this is a different journal, same paper, I think. Let's see. The other one I just showed you was mixed media paper. The circle one is mixed media paper, and this one mixed media paper, but I think they're two different brands. Anyway, so here are the squares. So we'll pull these off. So when they dry, they just sort of come away from the paper, which is cool. And then over here, I just had some ink, and I didn't know whether it was waterproof or not. It turns out it was water soluble. I have no idea what kind of ink it was. And so I put a couple of these squares. This one was yellow and pink on top of that because I just wanted to see what it did. You can see the ink. This is where I got the ink wet in the background, so you can see how it bled out. And then when I put these two squares of bleeding tissue on top of it, I didn't expect that at all. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So, yeah, not bad. Okay, we'll see if this one wants to run. Yeah, it's a little bit. There's a little tint of color coming out, but not much. That's pretty cool. So anyway, there you go. Bleeding tissue, bleeding art tissue, something new to try. All right, so this is what I did. I'll just use some more of the squares because I've got some out here. Okay, so this is what I did. I just had the squares in my hand. I had clean water, clean brush, and then I just put water on the page, and I stuck the tissue down and put water on top of it. And you can see how it immediately starts to react. And then we're just going to take random colors, whatever's in my hand, that's what we're going to use. So I cleaned out the brush, put more water down, dropped the tissue into it, got it wet from the top, and just see what it's going to do. Okay, let's see down here with this. See how that reactivates that ink right there? So let's put maybe this light, and then they're very fine pieces of paper, so I can see where there would be sometimes when I would have trouble, because sometimes my dexterity is not as good. From time to time, my coordination might be a little different. But this is a pretty easy way to do a journal background, don't you think? I'm trying to stay away from those stitching lines because I have stuff on the other side of that page. So I don't really want the water to run through the stitching holes. Although if it does, big deal. And there's not really a good reason that I have for the way that I'm putting the papers down. I'm just playing. Sometimes you just gotta play, folks. You just gotta play. Okay, let's put this orange on top of that. Now, this should make mud. right here. This should make mud. I'm just picking out some more papers. I mean, they are fine, fine little papers. They really are. But you do need the water under, from what I can tell, you need to have the water under it as well as on the top. We'll see how much, whoops, and I just splatted some right on the floor. If you put it under it, it helps it adhere to the paper. But you should look at Mary Beth Shaw's video that she did where she did it with stencils. That was very, very cool. The effect that she got with the stencils. I have to say, I do like what it did with that water reactive ink, which was probably, I'm going to guess, probably Distress ink. Anyway, there you go. So there's some stuff to play with. These are bleeding art tissue squares and art tissue circles, and they're both bleeding tissue paper. So these are the circles that I just put on top of each other just to try it and see what they did. And then my Mary Beth Shaw said that she used the tissues then after they were spent, you know, after they'd given up their color, she used them in collage. And so I thought that's why I was going to save some of them and try that. So if you guys want to hang on a little bit longer, let me move this over to the side here and let me get another journal. Let's see. Here, we'll just use this journal. I gotta move things around just a little bit here. All right, let's that's the page I opened to, so let's use it. Okay, just looking for a brush I don't care about. And matte medium. So this is some matte medium, golden matte medium. There's not much of it left. But let's put some on the paper, and now I wouldn't guarantee that I have used all of the color out of the tissue. And I can tell I haven't because some of it's showing up on my brush. Yeah, you can see a little bit of the color coming out in the medium. So I didn't get all the color out of the tissue. So I really should be using the matte medium in a dish instead of dipping my brush into the container, but you know, that's how we roll sometimes. We just live dangerously and go for it. Okay, let's use some more of these. Now these are kind of pretty where they overlapped each other, then you get new colors. That's kind of cool. And if you wonder what this big stripe of green here is, I think it's because that piece of paper was coming out. This journal is perforated. I personally do not like perforated tissue paper or perforated journal pages. For that very reason, because you work hard on something and then they want to turn loose, and I don't like that. So I tend not to use those anymore, the perforated papers. Now, of course, this has had some ink or something from the page behind it. Yeah, probably a ton of ink and paint and stuff on the other side of this. That's what's shadowing through on this side. Linda McAllister, hello! Peg thinks that she used it about 35 or 40 years ago. It's all new to me. It's all new to me. It is not something that I ever used or purchased before. And I thought, okay, you know, sometimes you just need a shot in the arm of something new, and it wasn't expensive. That was the other thing that was nice. It wasn't an expensive thing. It wasn't an expensive proposition. I love how that one turned out. That's what that water-soluble ink that was on the page that reactivated, and with yellow tissue paper, and I got that beautiful mottled color out of it. And I'm just putting these on this page just to see what happens. If you don't want to paint with paint, you might paint with paper. You might like to paint with paper. So we're gonna just kind of glue down in whatever way these spent papers, the ones I had on the page. I'm just going to glue them down and we'll see what happens. Looks like they're gluing down fairly smoothly. But, you know, tissue paper as a rule goes down relatively smoothly. So let's put some over this tape. And then we'll just put this one on top here, just because. Okay. So now those should not come up again because those are glued down with golden matte medium, so they should not come up. They should be down permanently. Where these, because I only used water, these are the ones that we put down with the water. Then as they dry, then they're going to release from the paper after they put their pigment onto the page, which is pretty stinking cool, I have to say. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this, but I think that is pretty stinking cool. Okay, so there you go. All right. Any other questions? Good to see you, Linda McAllister. Yeah, I'm being gone out of town for a few days. I may take some of these with me. Could be cool. Yeah, Linda McAllister is across the pond, as it were. Okay, so our little gnome home is done-ish. It's not quite, but... So from a distance, you can see our little gnome house. The flowers are dry. The flowers in the thatched roof are dry now. And our little... have to put some more grass down here on each side of the door and finish the stones on the side, but our little gnome house is pretty much finished. And then our little gnomes and mushrooms will attach to that. And I'll have a new load of papers to put in my used bleeding tissue paper envelope. Shall we pull these off so you can see what they look like? I know they're not fully dry, but shall we pull them off? But even what the papers do, they color each other, which I think is very cool. So they dye, the color runs into each other, so you end up with these really neat little multicolored papers that started out, I mean, look at that. Started out one color and now they're multicolored. Here's this one. That one didn't do too much, but the paper turned out pretty cool. And they're pretty dry. The papers are pretty dry. And this paper that I put the water on, it was really, really wet. I didn't use any ink. They're all just tissue papers, bleeding tissue papers. What was down there was something that was left over that was water reactive. I'm assuming it was distress ink, but I don't really know. But it was a water reactive ink of some kind that was down there years and years and years ago. But, you know, I mean, I think that's really neat. I like what the tissue papers do as much as I like what they're doing down here, but I like that. I do like that a lot, actually. So there's that one. All right, let's pull these off. These on this page may not be... Oh no, we're not going to pull those off because those are put on matte medium. Duh. Anyway, there's the background. And there's the other background. So those are two backgrounds that I did. Just testing the papers. There's the other one. Testing the papers. And what was on the other side of this that was stitched was that, which I like. It's a tree. It's a joyful little tree. Anyway, so there's that. Okay, and this is put on with matte medium. So these were the spent pieces from the other two, on top of, I think it must have been alcohol ink that I used in here on the background. It was probably alcohol ink and I don't know what else. And so that's what came through the paper. But that gave some really interesting visual texture looking through the paper. Yeah. Yeah, you can use the used tissue. Uh-oh. Dorothy's fluorescent light in her kitchen just quit. Not good. Okay, so remember that I will be streaming Monday night here at 7 Eastern, and then I will not be streaming July 4th, 7th, or 11th. I hope to be back streaming on July 14th. That is the plan. We'll see how that works. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad you were here, and I will see you Monday night if you can come to be here. I'm not sure what we'll do. We may do some more stuff with the bleeding tissue. I don't know. Until then, thank you to the mods for being here, and I will see those of you who are here for VIP class tomorrow. And until then, remember to get creative today, because you know it's easy, and I'll see you before you know it. Bye for now.